Welcome to the Washdown podcast, episode number 89. And tonight's guest is Natalee King. And you may know her from her very popular TikTok and Instagram. She has a fantastic story of going through trauma and coming out the other side. It is definitely worth a listen. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed making it. Yeah, so here you go, episode 89 with special guest Natalee King.
Yeah, but because I can't remember, is it recording now?
I think it is recording now.
We can't. We fuck it up every time.
Yeah, I heard it, so it says recording.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, just really, like I said, it's this episode's about you. Feel free to.
Okay, well, I'm Natalee, and I am an Air Force veteran and a Gold Star wife. So basically, my childhood, I grew up in a military household. My mom and dad were both military. They met in the military and in the Army. They were MPs, and then they married and they branched off. My dad went to the Coast Guard, and my mom was in the Air National Guard. So I have a lot of background with the military. My sister was also in the military. My younger brother's active duty right now. And then when I joined after high school, and my sister had just passed away from a drug overdose. She had gotten out of the Air Force and was a CNA. And she had a drug addiction to opiates, painkillers for quite some time. She passed away in 2008, and a lot of the help back then wasn't as like it is now. There wasn't much of it back then. So I wish I would have done a lot more for her in terms of her addiction. But one night she passed away from her addiction. That was pretty rough on the family, just because it's always been us five. We lived in Puerto Rico, Hawaii, California, Texas. We moved around a lot, just us five. So it was really devastating for our family when she passed away.
Was the lack of help back then, was it due to still probably not understanding of the stigma, or just the resources not being available?
Well, they didn't even acknowledge pain pills as a problem back then.
Oh yeah, true.
I mean, they were just giving them out like chiclets.
Yeah, yes, you're so right on that. So I believe it's both. I believe there was a stigma and also the resources, because so my sister, I remember going to the pill doctors with her in Houston, because that's where we lived at the time, and they're called them pill mills. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there would be people lined up outside the door for miles long before they opened, just to get their pain pills. And they would give you, all you would have to say is your back hurt, something hurt, and they would write you a prescription of like 90 Xanax, 90 Somas, and 120 Vicodin or something like that. It was crazy. And you could go to multiple doctors a day and get these painkillers. So this is what my sister was doing. And anyways, back then also, Suboxone wasn't really around. I think it came out just around the time she passed away. And Suboxone it's a drug that helps opioid users get off of opiates. So that wasn't around either. I believe that could have saved her life. But anyways, so back to the story. She passed away. After she passed away, I joined the Air Force. I had to get out of town. I went to Lackland for my training, and then Fort Leonard Wood, and then they shipped me to Japan, which was an awesome experience. I had a fun time there, and that's where I met my husband, who was also in the Air Force. So we got married in Japan, and then I found out I was pregnant, and we wanted to have our son in the States. So that's when we moved to Maryland at Andrews, our presidential base at Andrews. And that's when my husband was killed. He passed away in February of 2013, and he was killed on an on-base accident. He was basically pinned against a wall by a vehicle, and my son, our baby, was only about 8 months at the time. So that was really hard on me. That definitely broke me, and especially with my mental health, that really threw me over the edge. It was devastating, to say the least.
What resources, I guess, at least when you're on base in the military, what are the like acute resources available from the military for a situation like that for you, especially for mental health?
Yeah, so the first time I went, okay, so I'm trying to think. The first time I went to get mental health from the military, help with mental health, was when my husband was deployed, and I was put on some antidepressants. Just, I don't know, I just was telling them I was, feeling kind of sad and lonely, stuff like that. So they gave me antidepressants. And then when he passed away, I remember the military was really accommodating. They asked me, where I wanted to go. So because we were at Joint Base Andrews, my mom was visiting me at the time. So all my family was down south. So they asked me, do you want to stay here in your home? Do you want us to buy you a plane ticket, from where your family's at? I said I wanted to stay at a hotel on base until his services were over and stuff like that, because I just couldn't stay at home. So they did put me up in a hotel on base, and the doctors came to my room. I guess it was a psychiatrist. There was two of them. So they came to talk to me about my mental health, and right away they had prescribed me Xanax, antidepressants, and I believe that's it at that time. But that's where my Xanax addiction started. I got addicted to Xanax pretty quickly after that. So I don't know, where was I? I'm trying to think. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. In the hotel.
Yeah, so they came to the hotel right away and helped me with my mental health. And then everything's such a blur, just because I was so in shock. I was grieving. Everything, it went so fast. But they set you up with a officer, the casualty officer and stuff like that, who help you through all the process of all the death stuff. And then, so after the Air Force, okay, I got into my addiction real bad with Xanax after my husband passed. This was about 4 or 5 years. I was in my addiction. I moved in with my mom and dad down in Florida. And this is also where my husband's family lived. So I thought it would be best to kind of be around them so that my son could grow up with part of his dad's side of the family. And it went good for a little while, until my addiction really got bad. I signed over custody of my son to my mother, because she sat me down and she told me she didn't think that I had many years left if I continued down the road that I was on. And she told me, just in case your addiction takes your life, you need to make sure that John James is taken care of. And so I did end up signing custody of my son over to my parents. And after that had happened, I had a suicide attempt, which was pretty scary. I think I had taken some Xanax one night, and I ended up running my Mustang into a light pole and totaling it. And I was institutionalized after that. I woke up in the hospital and I was institutionalized, of course. And that became a real long road of going in and out of, rehabs and institutions and mental health facilities, things like that. This went on and off for about, like I said, 4 to 5 years. And I ended up meeting another man who he had just gotten out of the Army, and he was amazing. He was an amazing guy, and he let me talk about my husband freely and openly. He let me grieve the way I wanted to, and it never bothered him. And he treated my son, he didn't have any kids of his own, and he treated my son like gold. It was amazing. And I quickly fell in love with him, even though it was a different kind of love that I felt than with my husband. It was a strong love, though, and he helped get me clean off of drugs. It took about 2 years, but I slowly weaned off of Xanax, and I stopped hanging out with the people that I was hanging out with. And I finally got on track and got clean. I was so thankful for that. I got my son back, and it was amazing. And then, I always knew that mental health issues ran in my family and that anything could happen. I mean, once you're an addict, you can always fall back to that path. And so I was always scared in my head, like, is something going to happen, or something tragic is going to happen, and am I going to go back to my old ways? It was always in the back of my mind. And I really got the reality of all that when my dad had shot himself in the head. He shot himself in the head because he had ALS. And he had it for about 4 years before he did this. And my brother had called me and said, Dad shot himself, but he survived. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I had to get to Texas right away, because that's where my dad was at. So we went to Texas, and he had lost his eye. He lost his right eye, but none of the brain was hit at all. It was amazing, a miracle, really. And that's when I moved him into my home to take care of him. Because when you have ALS, I mean, you have no function of your muscles. Basically, you can't walk, you can't talk, you can barely eat. So he had tube feeding, diaper changes, showering, nail filing, haircuts, shaving, everything that you have to do to take care of a person. I had to do it for him. And it was a lot of hard work, but I wouldn't change it for anything. And he ended up passing away in February of 2021 from ALS. And like I said, in the back of my mind, I was always scared that I could fall down the wrong path again. And thankfully, I haven't. It'll be 2 years this February. And I have implemented a lot of different, I don't know, ways to help cope, I guess you could say. One thing I think that's helped me so much is like meditating. I love to meditate before I go to bed. I also like listen to healing music, like sound baths and things like that. Breathing treatments I do. When I have anxiety, I always do my breathing treatment. I actually have a little device. It's called a Call Me Go that helps you ground yourself when you're feeling anxious or depressed, things like that. So I've implemented a lot of things to help me throughout the years. And I think that's what's kept my sobriety and my mental health. On top of that, though, my mental health is also my medications has helped me. So that's, yeah.
Holy shit.
That's a lot to unpack.
Well,
yeah, I know.
Well, I
and
remember,
you can ask me questions about anything. I'm open to discussing any part of my story. So
well, and that's why I was so like, when I'd watched some of your videos and I had sent it to Jeremy, and I was just like, we got to get her on. Like, and it was kind of simple. I don't even know where to start, but like, I've got to hear this. We've got to hear this story. Like, we've got to,
right.
And
Well, and I think the important part of it, and the thing that stands out the most for me is, yeah, I mean, you went through a ton, the metric crap ton of stuff.
Right.
You came out the other side, and you've grown from it. And that's kind of what,
because how many people have we had on the show where like afterwards we'd be like, they have an amazing story or of some, traumatic incident, but we've always been like, well, they haven't quite
they're
healed.
not quite there yet.
Yeah, they haven't like,
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
but that's what we're trying to highlight, is the fact that you can go through all of this stuff, do the work, get the help you need, whatever it may be, and then come out the other side and be better for it.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I really believe like the times that I was institutionalized, even though it was, over a handful of times, it was maybe 10 or so times I was in and out of these mental health institutions. I believe that has helped prepare me to be successful, to in my sobriety, in my mental health. Those, checking yourself in for 3 to 7 days can do wonders on your mental health. It's helped me in ways I didn't even know that I needed. So,
Well, and what we've talked about a lot on the show too is different treatment modalities. We've had different professionals come on, talk about different treatments they provide. We've had different individuals come on and talk about different treatments they received. I'm interested in talking with you though, because you've hit a lot of them, obviously with medication being one, institutionalization, but then also you talked about how, meditation and things like that.
mhm.
How is that fine line between, walk me through your journey, at least in still trusting in medication to help with your mental health after having that addiction that started because of your mental health?
Right. That's a good question. So, because I do get asked that a lot. Like, I say that I'm sober, but I take medication as prescribed. So, as long as I'm taking it as prescribed, I consider myself sober. However, the medications that I'm prescribed are not, I guess, considered addictive medications or medications that you could abuse. The medications like that help with my mental health. I've tried so many antidepressants. I've been on bipolar medications. I've tried so many things for sleep, everything. And thankfully today I'm only taking 2 medications, an antidepressant and a mood stabilizer. And taking those consistently have seriously been a lifesaver. If I were to stop, I don't know what would happen. But as far as addiction and the medications that I take today, another medication that I do take too that helped me get sober, I left this out, I'm sorry, is Suboxone, the one that I wanted to help with my sister. I do take Suboxone. I've been on Suboxone for about 8 years, and I'm trying slowly to get off of it. I'm down to 1 milligram. You're supposed to taper off real slowly. That's another thing that I think helps me is with that medication, you cannot like take any type of opiate and get high off of it. This medication blocks that from happening. So that's been helpful. It's been very helpful in my addiction part of it that Suboxone has.
So what is it like? So if you had let's say you had a medical emergency and had to go to the hospital or something like that, and they gave you an opiate on top of you taking the Suboxone, is that going to make you sick? Is it just not going to do anything?
So it depends on how much they give you. So you could go into precipitated withdrawal if you take an opiate with that Suboxone. So you could go into withdrawal, having, cold sweats, chills, stomach pains, diarrhea, vomiting, all that. You could have that. But so I had a surgery done, I think a few months ago. What they had told me to do was to stop taking my Suboxone 3 days prior. And then I would be able to take the medication. So if an emergency happened, they would definitely need to know that I was on Suboxone. Otherwise I wouldn't get any pain relief, and I could go into precipitated withdrawal.
Yeah. So make stuff just a little bit worse.
Yes.
So James, remember that whenever you're running calls before you push some narcs.
So what was your when your addiction started after the death of your husband, what was your in the days after the services and things like that, what were your resources from the military, and what did your exit from the military look like? That kind of
I mean, it wasn't very eventful. It was just, to be honest, that time period is such a blur to me. And my mom really helped with the paperwork side of it. She really did everything for me, and I signed. So I don't really remember exactly what it looked like. I think I just got my paperwork and signed off on it, and they were, done with it. And they, I mean, of course I get, I had to go through all the benefits and stuff that you get from losing a spouse in the line of duty. My son and I receive our benefits and everything. So we had to go through all that. But one thing about the benefits that I don't agree with on the military side is my son and I would lose all of our health insurance, all of our benefits, if I were to remarry before like the age of 63.
What?
So yeah, so I'm not allowed to ever get married ever again unless I want to lose everything that we have. So that's pretty shitty.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah.
What's their reasoning behind that?
I really don't know. I've looked it up a few times I don't know the reasoning behind that. I have no idea. I don't know why that is. Strange though.
I mean, I guess, yeah, I guess if you remarry, they feel like you're going to be taken care of, so they don't need to fulfill their obligation anymore.
That's the fucking government for you.
That's what it seems like. So
I'm about to get on a soapbox. Oh shit.
Yeah, it's pretty shitty. That was a big, at 23, I was 23 when I became a widow. That was a huge punch to the gut when I heard that. I was like, wow, gave all this to our country, and this is what we get in return. I'm 23, I can't ever marry again. Okay.
Yeah, that's fucked up. Somebody needs to change that shit.
Yeah, it's outdated or something.
So how old is your son now?
He's 10 now.
That's awesome.
So, and we talk about his dad all the time. He hears about him all the time. I have a picture of him in his room. And my husband now, I call him my husband, but
don't let the feds hear you.
Yeah, don't let them hear me.
I'll edit that part out.
They'll come busting in the door. But he the man I'm with now, he's a great father. And like I said, he lets me talk about my husband, my late husband, all the time, any way that I would like to. And he knew him and his family and stuff. They weren't like real close friends or anything, but they knew of each other. So he's very understanding.
And I guess I'm sure people would ask, like, how do you begin to, like, when you love somebody and it's taken away from you, not by your choice, how do you love again? And I don't mean to sound so cheesy in saying that, but like, what is that process? How do you do it?
I don't know. It was, I felt, it's kind of unfair in the beginning for his name's Justin, the man I'm with. It was kind of unfair for Justin in the beginning, I feel like, because he fell in love with me as an addict, and I was broken, and I didn't expect him to stay. In fact, I still don't know. I ask him sometimes, why did you stay after even the first night of knowing me? Because I was such a mess. And he said that, he saw something in me. He saw that I was more than this. And that's what he tells me. But it was just unfair to him to have to, he had to start from scratch and help. I don't know how to explain it. It's so hard. He had to like rebuild me almost. And I don't feel that's fair to him, because to be in a loving, committed relationship, you need to love yourself. You should have your priorities in line before you go finding someone else. And I think at that point, I wasn't really looking for love or finding anyone else. It just kind of happened with Justin. It fell into place. And when he got me sober, or helped get me sober, I should say, he, I felt so much gratitude towards him, and it made me fall even deeper in love with him, because I saw how much he cared about me as a person and how much work he helped put in. Because it was rough, you guys. It was rough. It was hard.
Well, you don't have much control over who you love,
Right.
and we all have this idea, or whatever, about, oh, it's got to happen this way, or it should happen this way, or should all day long. But the reality is that it doesn't happen like that, not half the time.
Yeah.
So I mean, it happens when it happens, and it happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
So,
And I truly feel like he was sent to me from my late husband, because my late husband, he knows what kind of man I needed and what kind of man I need to be with. Even today, Justin, he is amazing. He works his butt off every day, Monday through Saturday. And then he comes home and he, he'll cook the kids dinner. He'll cook me dinner, and he'll serve it to me, in the room. And I don't know. He waits on me and stuff, and he likes to do that. That's the type of person he is. He's a helper. And I feel like John just knew that I needed a man like that in my life. It kind of sounds selfish, but I feel like that's what he knew I needed in life. So kind of corny, but whatever.
I don't think it's corny at
No.
all.
I mean, it is.
I'll be cooking my wife dinner as soon as we're done with this. So
See, there are so many men that do that out there, and I hear girls all the time saying they can't find a guy to do that, and I'm like, I don't know. I've had two.
Sucks to be you.
I know. It does.
So I want to get into the whole, what made you decide to start sharing on social media, to start doing the TikTok and all of that stuff? And what are you hoping to accomplish? And
right. So when I first downloaded TikTok, I've heard of TikTok for a while, but I never downloaded it. I ended up downloading it, I think, during the pandemic, at the end of the pandemic.
Because there wasn't shit else to do.
Yeah, there was nothing to do.
I've reached the end of Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime. What's next?
Me too.
TikTok.
I watched everything. So I started watching TikTok. And at first, I didn't know I was going to share anything. I thought maybe I'd just watch some videos. And I started coming across videos that I could really relate to. And I saw people talking about things, about trauma and their trauma and what they've gone through. And I saw the comments on there about, how much they were helping people and inspiring people. And so when I saw a TikTok that I could relate to, I would say things to myself like, I could make that TikTok, but with my story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was like, unfortunately, I could make this TikTok sharing my story. So I did that one time, and it went viral, and people were really sweet on the comments. I mean, you get every now and then, if you go viral, you'll always get some kind of hate, but it doesn't bother me really. So most of the comments were really great comments. And so people started asking questions, and I started sharing my story more. And, at that time, John had passed away about 9 years ago, and I felt ready to talk about it. I almost felt like I needed to, because I would write in my journal. I would write all these things in my journal, but no one would read it. So when I started sharing it on TikTok in front of people, I don't know, it just took off, and people were really inspired by it. And that's my goal. I mean, now that I have, a following, that's my goal, is to help other people, to inspire other people. Someone that people can just write and ask questions to if they're going through a hard time. I've talked on the phone to a girl I met on TikTok for like an hour long about what she was going through just with her parents and stuff. Like, that's what I want to do. I've always wanted to help maybe addicts or mental health, work in a mental health environment, but I just don't have the background or the skills to be hired. So this is another way that I can do that.
Well, and I think I'm glad you just brought that point up, because, especially in the fire service, sometimes for us, nothing beats just a good old kitchen table discussion at the firehouse.
Right.
You don't need these certifications. You don't need all the treatment modalities and the algorithms that we have to follow by a book. Sometimes we just need to talk on the phone to someone we met on TikTok for an hour. Like,
exactly.
That's all people need sometimes.
I know it. And that's the goal of my page now. At first I was just having fun, but once I started to grow, I was like, I could really help people by having a voice here. So that's all I do, is I just tell my story. And there's a lot of trauma in it. I'm kind of trauma dumping on everybody, but it's
I don't think I've heard that before, but I'm totally gonna steal that. Yeah, totally stealing that
trauma dump. So I mean,
hashtag that shit.
And I can relate to a lot of people too, because a lot of people have either with addiction and mental health, they've had it in their family or they're going through it themselves. So
well, there's so many little trauma clubs you can join. Like, there's hey, my family has ALS trauma.
Yeah.
Hey, I lost a husband trauma. Hey, I've been in the military. I'm a Gold Star widow trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I had to sign my kid's rights away trauma. Like, there's so many little different. You got a meeting on Monday night and a meeting on Tuesday night and a meeting on Wednesday night of all these different little areas you can go in, but they're all your experiences. That's what makes them genuine to you. Like, and it's that many more people and that many more groups you can connect with.
Absolutely. I think the same thing all the time. I'm like, I have different, categories that I can work in or talk to people in. So it's really great. It's been great. It's been helpful. And it's helpful to me too. Like, I never realized how talking out loud to an audience it's so beneficial to myself. I don't know how to explain it. It's just,
well, it's cathartic. And it's the more that you tell the story and go through the details and all of that stuff in the process of helping other people work through their similar traumas, you're also working through yours again and again and again. So that way you're taking those emotions and all of that stuff that are associated with those memories and you're putting them back where they need to be instead of, constantly there.
Yeah.
I remember, because we're on episode what with this now?
This will be 89.
Yeah, I remember. I think I joined on the podcast in episode 2, episode 3. And I remember, like, when I first told my story, I slept like shit that night. I had nightmares. Like, it just, but the more and more that I've been on this podcast and the more and more we talk about it, it's the same for me. It's just, I don't know how many times Jeremy's watched a little light bulb go off in my head sitting across the table from me. Just, when we've had somebody on, I'm like, how about that?
Yeah. And usually it's something I've told him 10 times, but
it almost like desensitizes you to it. Almost.
Exactly.
I don't know, but it's
not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way. Yes, thank you for including that. Not in a bad way though.
Yeah, for me, it's just it's regulated it. Like, hey, like, I can still talk about this. I still understand it. I just the extreme emotional attachment to it is gone, which I think is healthy. It's as time goes on.
Well, that's how your brain's supposed to work. You deal with those feelings and you put them back in memory, and the emotions that are attached to them aren't going to overwhelm you every time you think of it.
Right.
We join the fire service. Our brains don't work right anyway.
Well, yeah, but that's how people, that's how people get stuck in converting from PTS to PTSD, is because that those emotions and memories don't go to the long-term storage. They're up in the cardboard box sitting right by the front door all the time. Right. So you're constantly tripping over them as you're trying to come in the house.
As a mother, how do you, I guess, don't explain, how do you time it right, with some of this, the history of you with your son, especially going forward, because we're 10 now, we're, we're
Yep.
starting to get into middle school and kids are little assholes these days. And your story is very public.
Yeah.
These days.
How do you, yeah. How are you, like, what is your plan on kind of balancing that and still remaining true to who you are, but also educating your son on not only your history, but just mental health in general and how to be resilient to it?
Right. So my son, he does have a TikTok, but he's not allowed to watch my videos. He's only allowed to watch certain videos. And he asks me if he's allowed to. So so he's not allowed to watch my TikToks, only because, not yet anyway, only because I like to explain it to him in an age appropriate way. And that's how I do it. I'm going to always be honest and open with him, because growing up, my parents weren't very honest and open, I don't think. I think my mom and dad tried to like hide a bunch of their faults. And we ended up finding out about them anyway.
Well, that was generational, because we were like, and
Yeah,
because we're kind of the same age, and that was just very much like, we don't talk about problems, we just put it on our face, and that's why our generation's like, we're fucked up.
Yes, I swear to you, that reminded me, I wanted to say this. Another reason why I think I started sharing on TikTok is because growing up, my mom and dad, they didn't allow me to talk about family issues. They always were like, family issues stay in the family. You don't talk to people about these type of things. Things could happen if you do, yada, yada. And so I was
church
never allowed
folk
to
would
talk
be
about
mad.
it. Yeah, I know. And so I never talked about anything. Well, now that I don't know, it's been years and stuff, and my dad's dead, and my mom, doesn't care anymore. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to share my story, because I never was allowed to talk about this stuff growing up. I wasn't allowed to talk about my sister's death or her issues. Even my dad's mental health growing up was terrible. And, I never got to talk about that stuff. And I don't know.
Yeah, that type of environment and that type of thinking of where we just bottle everything up. I mean, we're seeing the results of it, like, because things don't stay bottled up. No matter how hard you try, they always come out. So we've set up a whole generation of people to fail, basically.
Yes.
And I don't mean like fail, but it's been made harder. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's what I do with my son. I'm always going to be honest and open with him, tell him the truth, age appropriately. And I'll just explain to him, why it took me down that path and how not to go down that path, and what life is really about. Like, at his age, he also always is wondering. He talks a lot about, death and stuff, because his dad, he knows all about his dad and how he passed and everything. And also, what was I saying? I'm sorry. He knows about his dad, but also, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought.
It's all right. I literally did the same thing on the show. I'll be looking at Jeremy talking. I'm like, oh shit.
Where was I going with that? I had a point.
I think it happens after your 30s. Like, after your 30s, your brain stops working.
It wasn't just my brain that stopped working either. I swear, I woke up the morning of 30 and shit started popping that I never knew existed. I was like, well, this is bullshit.
Just wait for the fun you guys are in when you hit 40. It's awesome.
No, I know, right?
I woke up, I was 100% fine this morning. My knees hurt, my back hurts, my shoulder hurts, and I've done nothing. Nothing.
Oh Lord, I know. I can't even drink anymore because it hurts too bad.
Yeah.
When I wake up.
Well, shit, just usually, like, when I try to go out with friends, I'm like, we're going drinking. Usually I get to the environment, I'm just like, oh my God, people. Fuck. You didn't tell me people were going to be here.
I know, right? That's my first question. How many people are going to be there? Who?
Yeah, I just don't even go anymore. It's easier that way.
So moving forward, what, like, in Natalee's perfect world, what is your, I guess, goals? We talked about what you wanted. What are your long-term goals with your TikTok, or just, you in general spreading awareness for mental health and helping others? What in a perfect world, what do you see yourself doing?
I mean, I haven't really thought about it that far ahead. Like I said,
Well, you got to come prepared for
um,
the show, woman. Geez, we
I
should have
know,
thought about
I
it.
know, I know.
Wow.
No,
Would
I
you
meant
be
like
nice to the guest? Holy
he's
shit.
fine, he's fine. I can handle it.
Like,
No,
this
I
is my
mean like
opportunity to get on him.
as far as my TikTok platform goes, like I said, it kind of just happened. I didn't plan for it to happen. I wasn't trying for it to happen. It just kind of happened just by sharing my story. So my goal is to continue just to do what I'm doing now. Um, Continue to spread, my story and some inspiration along the way, talk to people that I can help if I can help them, things like that. That's my long-term goal. If I were to get my TikTok deleted tomorrow, I don't know what would happen. I guess I would maybe start a new one, but if I didn't, I don't
You
know what I would do after
YouTube
that.
and Instagram.
Yeah,
Just change platforms.
yeah, change platforms. So that's yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would encourage you to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah,
So
it's hard because sometimes, it gets repetitive and
yeah.
and so I don't want to, share too much and it be so repetitive.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, I
but
go through the same thing whenever I'm trying to put together stuff for our Instagram or whatever, and I've kind of been bad about it the last couple of weeks. It's just like, what new thing can I put
right.
on there other than the same dang picture all the time, or the same message or whatever, because I do at times I totally get the feeling of, I'm beating a dead horse because I'm saying the
Yeah,
same thing over and over again. At the same time, there might be somebody that sees that video that didn't see the other videos, or I might say it in just the right way that sparks it for this person that didn't the last time,
absolutely.
so
That's what I remind myself too. But
Well, especially with
I don't,
TikTok too, it's an algorithm. Like at the end of the day, an algorithm brought your video across my phone one day. Like that's why you're sitting here is by pure chance. But again,
it's
like
not chance, that's science,
that's true.
that's
that
math.
But that's how you gotta look at it because that video led to you being here and for you to tell your story to our audience. That because not everybody in our audience reaches TikTok because I know there's some 60-year-old guy that always comments on our stuff and I'm betting he doesn't have one.
yeah, there's
No.
a lot of people that aren't on TikTok. So I mean it's great. That's why I agreed to it. So I can share my story on another platform and speak with you fine gentlemen. So
Well, we really appreciate it, and we appreciate you taking the time.
yeah.
What I was curious, do they have like for Gold Star widows, does the military have like I hate to say like round table groups, but like once you're post discharge, what are some of the services available for that?
Yeah, so there okay, it's kind of hard. So I've been looking for resources online. There's like TAPS program and stuff like that, but that's usually for if you were killed in action. So that's most of the services and programs are for military men or women that have died in action. And then the other services that I found are for suicide awareness, 22 a day, stuff like that. So there's not really much for in the line of duty deaths. I know that there's Gold Star Widows for the 22 a day awareness. They have retreats and stuff like that. And they go out on trips and everything. I know there's services, for KIA. There's home programs and things like that for them, but there's really nothing that I qualify for that I've found yet. So, to be honest, I don't know.
That's kind of a huge void, and
Right.
and we talk about, and as we should, our mental health of our service members that served overseas, but I don't really ever hear the discussion of the widows and widowers mental health of those that what I mean. Like
Yeah,
They
well,
don't talk about it. They
Yeah.
don't talk about it. it's I hate to say this because I love the military. Like I said, my brother, he's active duty guard. He's a helicopter rescue swimmer in the Coast Guard. My dad was a helicopter rescue swimmer in the Coast Guard. My mom was in the Air National Guard, and my sister was in the Air Force. And so I hate to say this, but I really kind of felt kind of just like dropped off on the wayside after everything was said and done. I never really got any contact from anybody. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, no, it's perfectly understandable. And unfortunately, our military and government has a depressing track record of dropping the ball in these type of situations.
Just a couple times.
Yeah. I mean, sending telegrams during Vietnam.
Yeah.
To notify. Really? I mean, yeah. So unfortunately, it's nothing new. However, with that being said, it's not right. I mean, they need to figure some way out to take care of everybody.
I agree. And
sounds like you got a job to do, Natalee.
I know. I wish I knew how to do that. I wish I knew where to start even, or who to talk to.
Well, we know some people with nonprofits. They might be able to help. We could put you in touch with.
Yeah, let's have a conversation after this. We can. Yeah.
Okay, that would be amazing.
Walk me through, with your dad being the badass of badasses, being a rescue swimmer, to seeing his decline with ALS. How did you process that?
It was so heartbreaking, y'all. It was. So my dad, he won. He not one. He has done many rescues. He served for 16 years as a helicopter rescue swimmer, and he's done so many rescues in those years. But one rescue he got the Distinguished Flying Cross Award, which is very high. It's one of the highest. It's higher than the Purple Heart even. I think it's on the same row. If you were to look up the medals, it's like on the same row as the Medal of Honor. So he had a very prestigious award given to him. And for a rescue that he did during a hurricane, he saved 3 men's life on a sinking fishing vessel. And he did it free, like he wasn't hooked onto the cable. He unhooked from the helicopter and swam and saved these 3 lives. And I mean, that just takes incredible skill, incredible determination. It takes incredible strength and courage. I mean, now that I'm older and I read his story, it blows my mind. Like, that was my dad. I can't believe my dad did that, you know?
My dad's cooler than your dad.
I know. No, but I just reading it was just amazing. And I couldn't picture him doing that. Like, I couldn't picture it because how I remember him is so frail and weak, and just, I don't know. It was hard to witness. It was devastating to witness. Him shooting himself in the head even was like, I just couldn't believe that he did that. It was really hard on my whole family. It was so hard. I don't know what else. My brother, he's a helicopter rescue swimmer today because he followed my dad's footsteps. He wanted to do what my dad did. So he got into that school and graduated. He's been doing that for a few years now. So, but yeah, his decline was just, the photos and videos that I have. I mean, anybody would say, you know, look at those and be like, this is unreal and devastating. So
yeah, that's a terrible, terrible disease.
Yeah, I can only imagine. My dad said it felt like he's being taken over by like quicksand, and he can't move his body, or I don't know.
There are things worse than death sometimes, and I always felt like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, my best friend growing up, his mom passed away from ALS, and it was, yeah, the decline was just
Mhm.
We've got here in our city, we've got a police officer named Sarah, and she has ALS, and it's just she's very vocal, very outgoing with her story, and it's still just like, I'm glad you're happy because this shit looks terrible.
Right. I know it. Oh, it was so hard. It was devastating when I found out. And
How long did he have between his diagnosis and his death?
about 4 years. So 4 to 5 years almost, maybe almost 5 years. So not long. It was pretty quick. It was rapid. He knew something was happening to his body. He just didn't know what. And that's why he moved to Texas to get answers. So that's when that happened. And I guess he could.
Probably the same type of guy like I am. We're like, well, if I don't talk about it, it's not happening.
Right. I know. Well, my dad has always been the type of guy where he has like a gun, like in every doorway that you walk by, and in his nightstand, he has like a handgun. He's that type of guy. And he always told me, he says, I keep it here for many reasons. And one of the reasons is if there's ever a fire and I'm trapped, I'm shooting myself in the head because I ain't dying by fire. And I was like, okay, Dad, I never really thought that he was going to shoot himself in the head instead of dying from ALS,
He was trapped.
Yeah, he was trapped like a fire almost. Pretty sad.
Yeah. On that note,
that's why I'm glad we had her on, because like I said, there's just so many little clubs she dives in that
I know.
It's like one of those like, hello, ma'am, can you do an 8-part series with us, please?
Right. I know. We could talk all day about addiction and mental health, and we could talk all day about military. Like, we could do that.
Well, it sounds like you have a bunch of content for your TikTok channel.
I do. Unfortunately, I do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all on how you look at it as far as fortunately, unfortunately, because,
right.
Like we talked about earlier, you came out the other side. So
exactly.
You grew and all that stuff. Now, fortunately, you came out the other side and you're able to share and be able to help somebody else and pass along, everything that you've learned to maybe help somebody not go down that path. That's the whole reason we even started this podcast, because we've all had our little things of, stuff happen. And it's like, you know what? We're not the only ones.
Right.
I know so many firefighters who've gone through so much stuff. I know veterans that, continue to go through stuff and have went through stuff, and police officers, and you just run down the gamut. And in that culture, we really don't talk about it that much.
Right.
It's you're kind of shunned if you do, and nobody wants to take it seriously until it happens to them. And then they're like, oh, well,
then they're in too deep and it's too late. You need to prepare almost. It's almost you need to prepare. I feel like, I've prayed. I remember praying for the things that I have today. And so that's another reason why I say, unfortunately, on these events, but like you said, it depends on which way you look at it, because today I'm so happy and I'm so content, and I have my family that I'm raising, and I love every minute of it. I wouldn't trade anything right now for the life that I have, because you never know what could happen, so I wouldn't trade it for anything. And everything that I've been through has put me where I'm at today. And I'm just grateful for that. I mean, life is hard and it can be ugly, but it is so beautiful. It really is. And I want people to see that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. 100% agree.
I mean, that's the perfect end cap to all of that.
Yeah.
Like, here's an hour of shit, but I love it. But it's your shit. Like,
it's
your
my shit. It's my shit. I love it.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's do closing thoughts.
I've been blown away. I think because we've had so many people on, and and it's a story from, well, I had a parent die, had a kid die, maybe I got shot, maybe something bad happened to a friend, and this Natalee's like, the world basically ended.
I'm like,
here
hold
I
my
am.
beer.
Yeah.
All of those things happened. And
I just, you know, I don't know more. I have yet to hear a better story of resiliency than this one.
yeah, well, and that's why I said, not to jump on your closing thoughts there, but that's why I said you read that story and you listen to, you tell it. And then, like I said, the biggest flashing neon sign for me was you came out the other side.
Absolutely.
So if you can go through all that and go through that mountain of crap that you went through and come out the other side, what's everybody else's excuse?
Anybody can do it. Anybody can. I
Yeah.
know they can. You just have to get your head in the right place. That's what you have to do. You have to. I found that the meaning of life for me, you are supposed to just raise your kids and raise your family and love who you love and grow old with them, and you die. That's just life. And I feel like once you accept that and you find your purpose and meaning in your life, then I mean anything's possible. It is.
Absolutely. All right.
That was my closing thought.
You got a closing thought, or you want to roll with the one you just said?
Yeah, that's fine. Just I just want people to remember, time heals and changes everything. I know that sounds cliche, but time really does. It changes everything in your perspective, and I just want people to remember that. So
Awesome. All right. Well, Natalee, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. James, glad you made it.
thank you
I
so
try
much
hard.
for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, no
Yeah, of course.
problem. So everybody out there, thanks for watching. If you are struggling, reach out. There are resources out there. Get the help that you need. And keep looking if you don't find the right help, because the right help is out there. And if you know somebody that's struggling, reach out to them, let them know you care, get them in touch with some resources. Yeah. And thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.